Good afternoon. This is the Torah on the final Parsha of the Torah, the Chumash, the five books of Moses. And the name of that Parsha is Vezos Haberachah, which literally means and this is the blessing. Vezos Haberachah, Asher Berek Moshe Ish Elokim et Bnei Yisrael Yifnei Moso. And this is the blessing of Moshe, the man of God, bestowed upon the children of Israel before his death. And the question, and why is this pasuk in fact needed at all? That's one question I'll be dealing with. It then goes on to Moshe giving the brachas to each one of the tribes except Shimon, which was included in one of the other tribes' brachas, and by implication. And he went up to the town. He was shown the whole land, according to many interpretations, both the whole physical land and also the whole future history of Bnei Yisrael. And Hashem buried him, nobody else. And he was 120 years old. And they mourned him for 30 days. And he said, never again has a prophet like Moshe risen, who Hashem knew him face to face, and all of the things, the tremendous things he did. And a few questions on this parsha. First, why do we need, as I said, the introductory verse? Could have just launched right into the brachas. Second of all, why did Moshe, in fact, have to die when there were prophets, lower level, who in particular, who went to heaven alive, which I'll explain in a little while. And the third question is, was with Moshe's death and the Jewish people passing into Israel, the Bnei Israel, passing into Eretz Canaan, which is now Israel, was that the end of Moshe Rabbeinu's career? Did he have any involvement in the future? That's another question we're dealing with here. And I'd like to address the first question, which said that Moshe the man of God. That was, in fact, praise of Moshe. He was told by God at the end of Parashat Vezos, you're going to go to the mount, top of the mountain. You're going to die there. And why? Because you didn't consecrate the people in consecrate me in the eyes of the people, and therefore you cannot go in. I've explained that elsewhere, but for any other human being who caused resentment, his greatest dream, which was to go into Israel, was not to be fulfilled. And that was a problem. And that's the big question. So, yet, how does it start? And says the blessing, is that a bracha, the Sheh Barech Moshe, Ish Elokim. In other words, he was such an elevated Ish Elokim. He had no resentment. despite the fact it was the people who caused him to lose the opportunity to go into land. And yet he blessed them wholeheartedly. Therefore, he was a true man of God. And that described Moshe Rabbeinu. Now, going to the other questions. Why did Moshe have to die? And if he had to die, what became of him after that? Now, we see that it says in this parsha that Moshe, I'll deal with the second question first. Moshe, it says, he was told by God, just before he dies, it says, you should not cross it, and I'm reading Parashat 4 in chapter 34. Omer Shemei Love, Zot haaretz shenishpati la'Avraham leYitzchak leYaakov leMezracha v'Tanena v'Chavita b'Neha v'Shama lo taver, which translates, and Hashem said to him, this is the land which I swore to Abraham, Yitzchak, and Yaakov, saying that I will give you to your offspring. I have let you see with your eyes, but you should not cross over there. Now, why is the last thing Hashem is virtually saying to Moshe? Why did he have to say that? We already know, in fact, that Moshe knew that. So, according to the Orach HaKodesh, it's teaching something different. It's not talking about him not being able to physically go over there. As the Orach Chaim explains based on the Zohar, that the normally after a person dies, the entrance to Shemayim, to the next world, is through Israel. Now, in Moshe's case, that was an exception because that only applies when a person dies in a normal way. For those exalted few like Moshe, who is literally, they talk about it was like death was like a kiss, a touch. In other words, the neshama, he was such a spiritual level. To separate the neshama from the body took very little in terms of, because he was already an angel in a sense, not a true angel, but he was almost angelic at his level. So it took very little to separate him. And as for the, it's explained, as explained in the Midrash, which just supports the Yura Partham Kodesh, is that Neshama did not want to leave Moshe's body, and it was only able to do that when it was promised it would have such a sublime connection to Hashem in the next world. Only then did it agree to leave. And when there's the Shekhinah that directly takes a person, not the Malach HaMavis, the angel of death, but in this case Hashem directly did it, there he's already entered into Hashem's presence, so he does not have to go into the neshama, the soul doesn't have to go into Eretz Israel to rise up. That's one explanation. Now that would explain why that box is included, and it's showing a great honor that Hashem gave Moshe, and then Hashem was the one who buried Moshe himself. Deep honor. Now, so the soul separating from the body, and Moshe went up to a very exalted place, I believe, beneath the Kisei, just beneath the Kisei Kavod, the throne of honor of Hashem. Now, that follows, but we see there are a number of people who went to heaven alive. One I want to focus on is Eliyahu Hanavi. There's all description of him going up in a chariot, but he never mentioned he died. No death, no mention of any death. Now, in a sense, he went up with certain aspects of his body as well as certain physicality as well as spirituality. Now, why couldn't Moshe have done that? And there's a couple of reasons given for that. Because Moshe was in such an exalted place, which Eliyahu never got to, he couldn't go there because his mission was entirely different. He was to come back to earth as Hashem's representative, and he's appeared to people, and that's one thing. And in addition to that aspect, Moshe had completed his mission, at least for now. I'll get into that more at that time. Now, that being the case, he could go to the place. Now, Pinchas and Eliyahu are the same soul. Going into all the details of that, I've explained in other shirim, the Torah's how that works, and I'll give another shir on it in the future. However, because Pinchas stopped the plague by killing Zimri and Cosby, two who were committing an act of immorality in the front of the camp, even though Zimri was a prince of the tribe of Shimon. Despite all that, Pinchas killed him and Cosby, the Midianite princess. And that stopped the plague. After 24,000 people had died. And Hashem gave him he gave him Pinchas the status of a Kohen, which he otherwise wouldn't have had. But he also gave him, if you look at the word when it talks about, he was given shalom. Now, if you look, there's a division in the letter. It's spelled Shin in Hebrew, Lamed, Vav, Mem, Sofit. And the Vav, the third letter, was split. Now, if you look at it that way, and we read it with the top only, it looks like Yud, that Shalem, he was given completeness. What was the completeness? That his forces of earth, air, spiritual earth, air, fire, and water, which everybody are made up of, they're all out of balance in every human, so that so that eventually a person will die. With Pinchas, they were brought, who became Eliyahu later. It became one. It became imbalanced, and therefore he never died. Therefore, that would explain the physicality, because his mission, as good as he was very different from Moshe's. Now, the question is, was that the end of Moshe Rabbeinu? Before explaining the answer to that question, which is I would like to quote a midrash. It's a midrash. It's midrash in Parshas Vayelech, appears in midrash Tanakuma, and it appears in Devarim Devarim Rabbah, that when Moshe finally accepted he would have to die, because the people could not handle the level of a entry by him, which would have been open miracles, because the people had not been sanctified, because Moshe broke the rock instead of speaking to it, that they didn't merit that level of holiness, because they didn't realize Hashem's true strength and greatness. And he told them, though, he said, Hashem said to Moshe, I swear, just as you led my sons in this world, so we will lead them again in the future era. When is that going to be? That's going to be in his man of Mashiach, the Kiyas Metim, resurrection of the dead. May it happen very speedily. Coming of Mashiach and redemption. Kiyas Metim, Bible of the dead. And therefore, Moshe's role wasn't finished. Now, taking this one level a bit deeper, Moshe was the shorish, the root soul of all the souls of all the Jewish people who were born in the desert, in the generation of the desert. Now, they were a very exalted, so because of that, and another reason I'm going to explain right now, all neshimas were originally neshima parts of either Adam or Cain and Hevel. In this case, it was a case of Hevel, and it's explained that all of the neshima, that all the different millions of neshimas that are represented in Hevel, that through Moshe became all the Jewish neshimas, have to be perfected. So Moshe, in a sense, comes back every generation as a Yogel. We don't know who he is or what his exact presence is, but he is here. And that is very interesting. So, but what is this additional prophecy that he will lead the people again? Now, there's a number of meanings of it. There's one source that says he will be Mashiach. Now, saying that Moshe is Mashiach, he's got a problem in it that, well, Mashiach is supposed to come from the tribe of Yehuda, either be David Melech or a descendant of his. So how does Moshe Rabbeinu qualify? He was a Levi. Now, many commentaries explain that what we're talking about here is because he represents the shorish of all neshimas, the root of all Jewish neshimas, including at the time of his man Mashiach. Through that role, he is effect in providing the underlying soul of all the Jews, including Mashiach, whether he's David himself or a descendant of his. And therefore, in that sense, this is the Orachaim and others, that he is the Mashiach in that sense. According to the Ramchal, it's more than that. He is literally the king of the world. Now, the Ramchal brings a whole proof of this through Megillus Ruth, beginning of Megillus Ruth, which I will discuss in another time, much closer on in a year when we get close to Shavuos. However, how does the Ramchal get around the problem? He says there's an effect three Mashiachs. The first, if we don't merit Mashiach and he comes at the appointed time, there's first going to be Mashiach ben Yosef, or known more commonly as Mashiach ben Ephraim, who will bring the people in and die over living waters. Then there'll be Mashiach ben David. He won't be fighting a physical battle. He'll be fighting a spiritual, emotional battle with all the nations and religions showing their ideas are totally false, in which case, at the end of that battle, they will accept one God. And according to Ramchal, then Moshe Rabbeinu come back after the David Melech, who's the son of Mashiach, has done that. Moshe Rabbeinu himself will come back and be king. Either way, as we're finishing off this our last parsha and going into her again, may we see this year the fulfillment of all of this. And I'd like to wish everybody a Chag Sameach and good Yom Tov.